Hi everyone, I'm Ashwin. I'm a software engineer working in Seattle. This is not going to be a super technical talk, so I hope all of you can follow all the way through um, because I'm okay. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, again, my experience in data science is not vast, so hopefully it'll be accessible to everyone. For a brief outline, I'll just start off talking a little bit about myself and how I got involved with MOOCs, and talk about how they've evolved over the years, and talk a little bit about the different styles of MOOCs, and give some tips on how to pick a MOOC effectively, and how you can use MOOCs to learn more effectively, and end it with the state of MOOCs today. So around 6 years ago, I was studying computer science in a small Indian town most of you probably haven't heard of. It's called Pilani. And Pilani was unique in that it was remote, like really remote. So this is where my university was, and that's where the nearest airports were, over 125 miles away. So just to get to Pilani, you had to fly and then travel like 4 hours by road. But to truly understand how remote Pilani was, you need to look at the next image. This is Pilani with New York scaled 100 times next to it. Would anyone like to guess what the pins represent? Those are actually McDonald's outlets. So now you can truly understand how far away from civilization I was. Now this remoteness may seem like a disadvantage, but to me it meant a singular advantage. I had a lot of free time, and I had to come up with innovative ways to pass that time, or else I would be bored out of my mind. In addition to that, classes at Pilani were optional. At least if you ask the students, they were. This was uncommon in Indian colleges, and it meant that for the first time I could choose what I wanted to study. And it was in this environment in late 2011 that I came across the first MOOCs, ML class, DB class, and AI class. Since this is PyData, I'm not going to be talking a lot about DB class. And you guys may be wondering, what about all the other online offerings that there were before these, before 2011? Stuff like MIT OpenCourseWare, or OCW for short. That was massive. It was on the internet after all. It was open, accessible to anyone, and it was definitely an online course. So why is this different? For me, there were two reasons that this marked the start of something new. One was the intended audience. In the case of MIT OCW, which was recorded in an MIT classroom, the primary audience seemed to be the students in that class. The videos were structured like reference material, and you didn't really feel engaged. You couldn't talk to the professor or your fellow classmates. The videos also were very long. I think MIT's Intro to Algorithms course averages around 50 minutes per video for a total of around 80 hours for the whole course, and that just doesn't fit well for a student on his computer at home. And since whereas with ML class and AI class, there was a significant difference. The intended audience was you, the student at home. Whether in India or the United States or anywhere else in the world, you were the ones that the course was made for. And your fellow classmates came from across different time zones, different cultural backgrounds, financial backgrounds, and educational backgrounds. And the online forums served as your classroom, where you could engage not just with each other, but hopefully also with the teacher. Sorry. The second reason this represented a watershed moment for me was the way these classes were named. They're all letter, dash, class. And we all know how important naming is in computer science, right? So this made me feel like these classes were organized with the same sense of purpose and would be organized with the same style, although that was not necessarily true. So going back to Pilani, I was faced with a difficult choice. I had to decide between either ML class or AI class. And I did what any sane human being would do. I chose the cute humanoid robot instead of that creepy cyborg. I mean, what is that thing anyway? I'm not sure. And that turned out to be a good forerunner for what was to come, because ML class used the latest technology available at that time, with digital images and slides annotated with different colors to explain different concepts. AI class, on the other hand, used technology of yesteryear with poor lighting, low resolution videos that were out of focus. And if that wasn't good enough, you had the professor's hand obstructing the video half the time. Over the next year, ML class transformed into Coursera, and AI class became Udacity. In fact, if you try to go to mlclass.org or aiclass.com right now, you'll be redirected to those sites instead. And it looks like at least a few of the people at MIT seem to agree with me when I said OCW was not really a MOOC, because later that year, they offered their own edX. With so many different providers, you guys may be wondering, how do I pick a MOOC? So the first tip I can give you is know your flavor. Luckily, all these different providers have their own styles, and knowing what style you like and what style makes it easy for you to learn may make it easier for you to pick a MOOC with the right provider. For instance, Coursera follows a very traditional style, and when I say traditional, I mean it's almost like a college course that just went online. This is a slide from Jeffrey Hinton's course, Neural Networks and Machine Learning. And you can see, I dare say this slide wouldn't be amiss in a college setting. Coursera videos are also quite long, around 20 minutes or longer, and there may be a question at the end just to make sure you're paying attention. And Coursera offers courses from a variety of different universities, but there's no standardization across the board. The only standardization seems to be because of the limitation of their evaluation framework, where all exams are usually multiple choice questions. Udacity, on the other hand, seems to have learned and significantly improved from AI class. The hand is still there trying to poke at the word poker, but this time around the text is visible. The videos are short, around 2 to 3 minutes long, and after almost every video there is a short quiz, as you can see on the left. I think that's great for students like me who snore straight through a 40-minute lecture. The evaluations are also quite rigorous as opposed to Coursera. There are a lot of programming assignments after every week, and the final exam is basically the same but up by one level. With edX, you get a hybrid approach where they have short videos, but there are slides. There's a transcript running on the side, and they have a mix of both multiple choice questions and programming questions. My next tip would be to use ClassCentral.com. They have reviews for many different courses, and I tend to agree with many of those reviews. Although a fair word of caution, they seem to rate easier courses better, and as a result you will find a lot of intro to CS and other courses at the top of the rankings. You can think of Class Central as Yelp for online courses, except all the courses are free, and the open now filter does nothing because the courses are massively open. I was expecting some groans there, but never mind. The third tip would be to know how much time you can and want to commit. In my experience, Coursera courses require lesser of a time commitment because they aren't as rigorous as Udacity and edX, but your mileage may vary. At this point, maybe some of you are thinking, do I even need a MOOC? And like, why not just read a book, right? And if you guys are thinking that, then you're in very good company, because Elon Musk has a video out there where he talks about how much he hates videos as a way for learning things just because they are so slow, whereas he can like devour books in probably hours. That's a good point, but I have a small counterpoint. How many of you have seen the Lord of the Rings movies? And how many of you have read the books? So I think there's something about videos that make them a little less mentally taxing. So I prefer videos to books. And we can probably leverage videos for better learning. So starting off with some tips for MOOCs. First of all, don't beat yourself up if you can't complete a course or if you fail to complete a bunch of courses. It doesn't matter. For every course I've completed, there are like at least 2 or 3 that just have been tossed by the wayside. The whole point of MOOCs is the freedom that gives you to leave a course midway through that you can't find elsewhere. So just don't beat yourself up if you don't complete courses. Secondly, consume videos quickly. A lot of these courses have a lot of fluff, especially in the intro sections, and there are many concepts discussed at a very basic level just because of the wide audience that they're addressing. I frequently watch videos at 2x or higher and skip forward. There are extensions you can get for Chrome and Firefox that let you do these for any HTML5 videos. Conversely, I would also advise you guys to slow down and absorb the parts where you find that the concepts aren't coming to you as clearly. The next tip is again related to videos. Frequently in in-class lectures, just when the professor is about to embark on a journey to conquer this vast ocean of knowledge, I find myself drifting off, thinking about random things like, why is this animal called a finless porpoise? It clearly has 2 fins. And the answer, if anyone's wondering, is because it doesn't have a dorsal fin at the back. But yeah, so by the time I've tuned back in, the professor's somewhere else, and the waters are too rough to reach where he is, and I'm lost without a hope, and that's the end of the course for me as I know it. But luckily with online courses, I can rewind, zone out a couple of times more, rewind again, and then finally get to where the professor is. I think another useful skill, which is also very difficult to master, is effective note-taking. I would take notes really judiciously, especially in the beginning few chapters of the course, in the intros and stuff. It's very easy to be really motivated and jot down everything that the professor is saying, but most of the things that are said in the intro lessons you won't be finding useful by the end of the course. In addition, this is a graph from Duolingo research which shows how the probability of remembering decays slower with every active recall session that you have. So I have come up with a small technique to leverage this in my note taking. What I do is I leave out some words while taking notes, maybe just conjunctions or things like the, and what this does is it forces me, when I revisit my notes before the next lecture, to read the whole sentence to just fill in those words. Here's that in practice. This is on Evernote. This is for a course on dinosaurs. What I've done here is I've basically written the words, but I've written it in white text. So you have to highlight them to read. And this provides me an additional advantage in that each time I come across these notes, I can force my brain to actively recall what the sentence is talking about. So here it is highlighted, the contrast. Evernote has changed their contrast since I wrote these notes, so it's not as visible right now. And these are some of my notes for edX's Intro to AI conference class, which I've published there on that URL. Here I've whited out the entire answer, and again when you highlight it you can see what the actual answer is. Another very useful tip I think is that you guys should use the forums. The forums are the main way you get to engage with your classmates and with the professors, and asking questions to clarify concepts you don't understand or answering questions that others have to solidify the concepts that you do understand is very useful. Some of the best courses I've taken have very active engagement from both the teachers and the students. These are the posts, forum posts from a course called Design of Computer Programs on Udacity. It's really good if you want to go from a beginner level in Python to an intermediate level. This was taught by Peter Norvig, and these are all the posts that he's posted on just one day, on June 4th. So this is while he's holding down, I shouldn't say probably holding down, but while he's keeping a full-time job at Google as Director of Research. So he's probably a busy man, and he still finds a lot of time to make posts and engage with students. In fact, he finds so much time that a student actually asked on the forums, how does Professor Norvig find time for teaching? And guess who answered that? Of course, Peter Norvig himself. This is another course that I took where being taught by a professor from Brown, Michael Littman. And here on the right you can see this is the third of the fifth post that we had in our back and forth, where he was just helping clarify a concept and helping me understand better. And I think this is what made MOOCs really massive and open for me in the truest sense of the word, because I was in India and he was in the US, and it was basically like I was being taught one-on-one by him. I find that looking for courses that are run in batches or ones that have just started tend to have more active forums than the others. For a more modern course, these are the stats for forum posts by Jeremy Howard and Rachel Thomas, who conduct the fast.ai course. Rachel's stats seem pretty crazy when you see 3,500 posts read and 170 posts created, and then you look at Jeremy's, where he's written over 2,600 posts and read over 15,300. So that's a really good indicator of whether a course is worth taking, at least until this metric is gamed. Another useful tip to get the most out of a course is to focus on the assignments. That's your primary way of learning, as this ancient Chinese proverb says. You can watch the videos as many times as you like, but only when I do something do I really understand it. Some of the courses that I want to highlight that had great assignments were again, the Berkeley course, the Intro to Artificial Intelligence. So through the course, they had you implement different algorithms for Pac-Man, starting with a greedy algorithm, ending with a reinforcement learning algorithm. And iteratively, week over week, the algorithm got better. And by finals week, the algorithm was much better than you ever could be at this game, which is uplifting and depressing at the same time. And these are some of the Jeremy's course, the Fast AI course, has assignments where you submit to Kaggle competitions. So that's a great way of getting real-world experience. This is a post from just 2 days ago where he's basically bragging about how good his course is, saying that all the top 5 on an active competition on Kaggle are his students. The second one's Jeremy himself. So I think it's very important not to skip any of the programming assignments. The theoretical questions can be skipped if necessary, but they provide useful if you just want to make sure you've understood the concept just being presented. The next tip would be to audit effectively. This probably ties up with point 0 as well. If a course is just not meeting your needs or doesn't seem right for you, just don't do it. There are so many courses and tutorials out there that you're better off trying something new than wasting your time with this particular course. Personally, I find courses where teachers visually explain concepts are more useful than ones where they just rehash a textbook into slides. And lastly, manage your time. I've already mentioned a couple of tips like consuming videos quickly and not doing courses that just don't work for you. I would also like to talk about a concept mentioned by Cal Newport, associate professor at Georgetown, where he talks about deep work. And the idea behind deep work is that it takes hours of focused effort to truly gain insights into something, to gain those difficult insights which you just cannot get from working for like a few minutes and then switching context back and forth. With that in mind, I like to take courses that are self-paced, which basically have all their materials released, versus ones that have weekly deadlines, primarily because work and vacation gets in the way of weekly deadlines like all the time. For AI, ML and MOOCs today, Coursera, Udacity have moved towards a paid model. They still offer courses for free, but it can be really difficult to find the material. Both of them only provide feedback for projects if you pay, and both, including edX, only provide certificates if you pay nowadays. This is a pretty big difference from when they started, when everything was free. This is the website of deeplearning.ai. If you look at it, you may not know that you can actually access the materials for free. All the wording is like carefully worded to say try for free or free trial, or financial aid is available for learners who can't afford the fee. But if you actually click on enroll, at the very bottom there's an audit the course button, which you can click to get access to some of the course materials. And with increasing college costs, this move may not be a big surprise. With hacker bootcamps sprouting up left and right, it looks like education is ripe for disruption. or maybe just ripe for making a few quick bucks. However, I think this paints a stark contrast to the original vision that these founders had. Here is Sebastian Thrun's comment on, who's the founder of Udacity, his comments on his Reddit AMA, where he says, "I stand behind my promise that our classes are free," emphasis mine. And I feel while he's still true to the letter of his promise, starting with 2014 when they phased out free certificates, they have slowly been moving away from the spirit of that promise. So since 2011, which was when the first MOOCs were launched, there have been a lot of changes in ML. When Andrew Ng's machine learning course was launched, the machine learning landscape was wide and filled with a lot of different techniques like linear regression, logistic regression, SVMs, neural nets, PCA, and a lot of others. Since then, random forests and neural networks have gained significantly, starting with AlexNet winning the ImageNet competition in 2012, followed by VGG and other neural network-based architectures, basically becoming the de facto way to do image recognition nowadays. This change was accelerated by libraries like TensorFlow, Deep Learning for J, MXNet, PyTorch, and others. And there are libraries like Keras that provide a simpler API, so even beginners or people who are new to the field can get started with deep learning. The success of sites like Kaggle.com provide a way to test your metal against other practitioners in your field, and that looks like it ensures that neural networks and random forests are here to stay. Most competitions on Kaggle, I think, actually are won by techniques that use random forests. So what about new courses in ML? So in today's world, in 2017, there are two courses that tackle the problem of neural nets, and they both tackle the problem very differently. The first one is deeplearning.ai, which is run by Andrew Ng, who taught the machine learning course in collaboration with Coursera. In this course, he starts small, going over what makes up a neural network, and slowly builds up over a sequence of 5 courses to how CNNs work and sequence models work. The other course is course.fast.ai, taught by Jeremy Howard and Rachel Thomas. This takes the opposite approach. It goes top down and is unique in being one of the few courses that do. In the very first week, you submit an entry to a Kaggle competition and view the results by using VGG. And I think I've heard from a lot of people that if you complete this course, you're probably on par with many ML scientists or people who transitioned into ML scientist roles today. Over the lessons, he goes deeper and breaks down different parts of the CNN architecture and explains the concepts at a lower level. Also, a few years after the first ML courses were launched, like in 2011, I think in 2014, Jupyter notebooks were invented, and Fast.ai makes great use of them. They're basically great for reproducible research and reproducible code. And that's my talk. Any questions? Yeah.
Did you find any real value in the certification in terms of like job market, or was it more just an edge?
Sure. So the question is, did you find any real value in the certifications in terms of the job market? So not really. I usually take these courses just to understand the concepts and improve my learning. I may have put some of these on my resume, I'm not sure. But I would like to think they didn't help too much. Yeah, I guess I contradicted myself a bit there. Good catch. I would say I would prefer courses that are actually time bucket it if I don't know the concept well, and because then I can engage with my students and with the teacher and clarify all the things that I need to know. But if I do know it at an intermediate or higher level, and I just want to get a deeper insight, then I would take the courses that are basically that release all their materials at once. Actually, internet connectivity was fine. We struggled a little bit with electricity, though. The college had great speeds, internet speeds, and because everything was connected through Ethernet. But yeah, there were a few power cuts in my first year. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So I imagine you did a lot of these courses like while you were studying. How do you manage to do these? I'm assuming you're potentially working out, but if not, how do you sort of manage your time, like with your pace of doing these classes? Like, do you do multiple at the same time, or do you try to focus on one?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question was, how do you basically manage to do these when you're working, and do you do many at a time, or do you focus on one? So I think it's really tough to find time when you're working. I tend to do just one course right now, like while working, because it's really tough to just get through one course, and wouldn't make too much sense to try to do multiple and not finish any of those. I think courses like Udacity's courses that are shorter are the ones that have like frequent checkpoints where you can evaluate yourself to make sure you're like getting the concepts, are easier to do right now. Yeah, go ahead. I think I may have in the past. I think I tried creating a Python course for Codecademy. I'm not sure. I don't remember how that went. And right now, it would be illegal for me to do work since I'm on an H-1B visa for anyone except my employer. The question was, have I created courses, basically? Yeah, go ahead.
What course are you doing right now?
The question was, what course am I doing right now? I'm just repeating this for the video. So right now I'm doing the fast.ai course. It's really tough. It's very different from Coursera and Udacity in that Coursera and Udacity usually like almost hold your hand through the concepts, whereas fast.ai, he just gives you a bunch of reading assignments and he's like, yeah, go figure it out, which is kind of, I guess, how the software engineering industry works too. So it's a lot of load. And after that, I hope to do deep learning.ai. So the question was, how do I discover new courses? Do I go to classcentral.com? So I usually only go to classcentral.com if I want a second opinion. I found that I usually like Udacity's courses and also some edX courses. edX courses aren't as standardized, so I can't tell for sure whether I'd be interested in doing the course. So then I might go to classcentral.com. Coursera courses, I almost never take them because they just don't work for me. They're exactly like a college lecture, and that didn't turn out too great for me. So. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah. Thanks.